All right, here we are at another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. Good morning, Peter.
Morning, Bill.
Episode number 366.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have some fun this morning.
Oh, well, that'd be nice.
Here is the name of today's podcast. Exposing the Real Estate Mafia.
Hey, wait a minute.
Top secret, too. That's today's title.
Okay.
Episode 366, Exposing the Real Estate Mafia Top Secret 2. We did this, I think, back in some episode before. I think it was episode 90 or something like that.
That's what I remember. Yeah, I was going to say 90-ish.
When we were first starting, but I have since tweaked it, and I think we're going to have some fun today.
And I might have a bonus Mafia point today.
Oh.
I just found out something yesterday. I'll tell you if it fits in. Okay. You go right ahead, though. You go right ahead.
Here is the description of this podcast. This may be the most interesting real estate episode you listen to. Plan to hear today how we peel back the curtain during this secret investigation and expose real estate's most monopolistic nature in today's society. While we shine the light on the complex network of professionals in every transaction, you will soon see how they closely resemble mafia traits, all while telling you their significant role in the transaction, which of course are all lies. And we will challenge these status quo myths with you today so you can come to your own conclusion about today's real estate intricate maze that cost endless tens of thousands in common transactions. Join us as we unravel the hidden truths and empower you with the necessary knowledge to cut through all these preconceived notions that are holding most back from doing deals. We guarantee to leave you questioning the flaws and deception. So tune in, be prepared to have your minds blown, and definitely don't miss it.
Very nice. Now, I want to put my own personal disclaimer in. I'm Italian if you look at my name on the screen. I just want to say up front, I've got nothing to do with the real estate mafia. I just want you to know that. I got nothing to do with it. All the bad things Bill's going to say, it ain't me, babe. No, it ain't me, babe. Okay, that's all. I'm done.
All right, let's do our housekeeping stuff first. So first of all, thank you for being here. Make sure you subscribe to us wherever you're watching or listening to us. Realize that every Thursday morning, 9:30 for a long time now, many, many years, almost a decade, we record this podcast on a live stream. And that live stream goes to YouTube, it goes to Facebook, and it goes to Twitter. So if you would like to be part of our conversation, you can do that by going to one of those platforms and using whatever device they allow you to type in your questions. You know, like on Facebook, it's in the on YouTube, it's in the comments. On Facebook, it's below the in the stream. I'm not sure about Twitter, and you can actually ask questions there. Please only ask questions pertaining to the podcast. If you have other questions, you can go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, and you can go to the top right-hand side. There's a support button there. You can actually send questions there. I personally check those every day, every other day or so for Peter or I. And also, if you want to join our WhatsApp group, it's called Let's Talk Real Estate. Yeah, Let's Talk Real Estate. Yeah. Okay. So don't forget to leave us a review. Don't forget to tell us if you like us or hate us, because that's our report card. And we do make adjustments. We are human. We do check these things. We do care.
We are human.
We are human.
We are human.
Yeah. You think that's a joke, huh? We are human. Yeah, with AI coming on board, I think it's probably more prevalent than ever.
No, I was talking to one of our my leads on REI the other day. Guys, you guys do. What do you guys do? How do you guys do it? It says, well, those first few conversations you had, Was it me? It was my AI. Really? Yeah, it worked
Yeah.
good. Here I am.
Exactly.
Wow. Holy moly.
All right, cool. Here's the podcast. Whoa. Some bold promises today while aiming my bullets, eh?
Mm.
First off, let me show you this. Definition of monopoly.
Mm.
A company or group having exclusive control over a commodity or service.
Oh, yeah.
Definition of a monopoly. A company or group having exclusive control over a commodity or service.
Hey, I just realized the derivation on that.
Uh-huh.
Mono means one.
Yeah.
Poly means a lot.
Yeah.
So monopoly is one controls a lot or kind of all of it. Isn't that horrible?
Yep. Definition of monopolistic.
Mm-hmm.
Relating to a person or business that has exclusive possession or control of the supply or trade in a commodity or service.
Mm.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Definition of monopolistic. Relating to a person or business that has exclusive possession or control of the supply of or trade in a commodity or service.
Mm.
So now you understand why I say the realtor system is a monopoly, because it fits in both those definitions perfectly.
Yeah. I studied it in business school, college, and they told me it was a bad thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically, these definitions mean that the realtor system is theoretically the only group that offers services when it comes to buying and selling real estate.
Mm.
They're the only ones.
Mm.
Think about it. The only choice sellers or buyers have are paying the set and absorbent realtor system fees, or sell it on their own and get lumped up from the market for not knowing how to do it.
Yeah.
Either way is costly and extremely emotionally successful for most.
Yep. You know what's funny to me? Sometimes people try to sell a house for sale by owner by themselves to skip the fees. But how many people looking to buy a house just go on their own? They almost always get a realtor. So the poor guy, the guy like selling on his own still has the other guy and the realtor still on the other side. Like, why do we need permission to buy things from each other? I hate middlemen are good for some things, but generally, oh my God, can you get out of the way and let me just deal with my seller, my buyer directly with anything? Imagine going to a supermarket. You need a guy to do it for you. He gets a cut because he does it. Come on, get out of the way. Always middlemen in the middle,
Yeah,
making money on nothing.
middlemen are good if they add value.
Yeah, sometimes it's very helpful. Otherwise, like, I could do this without you. Like,
But before we get done today, Peter, I'm going to answer all those questions.
Oh, I bet you are. Go for it.
Okay, so this brings us to the complex network of professionals. They're professionals.
Uh-huh.
They've named themselves as professionals.
Yeah.
In every transaction, or at least they try to be in every transaction. Right?
Yeah.
So here they are. The realtor.
Mm-hmm.
The banker. The attorney or closing agent.
Mm.
The insurance agent. And the inspector and appraiser.
Mm-hmm.
Now, from each of these spawns others.
Ah.
Like title searches and contractors and landscapers and plumbers and painters and carpet people, electricians and stagers and blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
Realtor comes in and says, "Oh, I think you're going to have to do some repairs."
Oh yeah.
Or they come in and say, "Oh, the seller's thinking, oh, I can get 150,000 for the house." The realtor's like, "No, no, 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 no. I could definitely get 175. And if you do the repairs, I'll do 190."
Mm-hmm. Oh, excuse me. Does he guarantee that or
No.
just? Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's opinion.
Yeah. It's yeah.
Right.
It sounds like bait to me.
See, fortunately for the professionals and unfortunate for the herd, the average person in America, we don't qualify facts. We don't have fact checkers like the news does. And even the news says they have fact checkers, but they never tell you who they are and how they did it. By the way, the internet is not a fact checker.
No.
The internet is just a bunch of opinions at this point. It's too big to be just facts. Now,
Wild West.
back when the internet was new, right?
Mm.
When supposedly Al Gore created it, which is another lie. Yeah, that's another lie.
He's not smart. I'm sorry. He's not smart enough. Come on.
So he was smarter than the one we got in the office now. So
he's not smart enough to lie good about it either. But
yeah. So what the internet started with, it was an intercommunication system between colleges.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the internet started.
Oh, that makes sense.
So in other words, one college had data, another college had data, and they started sharing it. Right.
Mm.
So back then, yeah, I could say, okay, facts, it's colleges and they have theories and, at least they had textbooks. I'm not saying they were correct, but at least they had textbooks, right?
Yeah, a lot of that stuff is incorrect. We keep changing your mind every 5-10 years about stuff. So that's not even exact.
So in a quick rundown, the realtor's job is to bring the transaction to the market or into the public's eye.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
They technically are done once they find the buyer and get the earnest deposit and purchase and sales contract signed.
Mm.
That's all their job is. Right?
Mm.
But the good ones have figured out, if you don't consult the transaction, you will not get paid because the deal won't finish.
Mm. That makes sense.
So they need to consult them, right?
Mm.
So imagine this, 1950s.
Yeah.
Right? Well, Leave It to Beaver type stage, right? Leave It to Beaver, which is a TV show in the 50s, right? So Leave It to Beaver type show, right? So there was a guy in a town or a small town, and he would know who was selling their house and he would know who wanted to buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
So he would connect them. And he would get paid a commission for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But that's all his job was. His job was nothing else. You go to realtor school, which I had done.
Yeah.
I paid all the thousands of dollars and I went to realtor school. I even took the test and refused to accept the license.
Huh.
Because to me, it was complete skullduggery, dishonest.
Mm-hmm.
Because all they taught me in realtor school was how to write the purchase and sales contract and how to get the deposit and safely protect it so it wouldn't, in case you had to give it back, you could.
Don't go spending it.
So let me just go. I'm off on a tangent now, right? So let me ask you this:
Mm-hmm.
as a landlord, if I take somebody's deposit to put them in the house, a 1 month security deposit,
right?
By law, I have to keep that deposit in a bank, and I have to collect interest and give it back to the tenant.
That's right.
So why doesn't the realtor have to do that?
Mm. Yeah, they don't do interest. Yeah. Do they have it? Where do they put it, by the way?
In their bank account. In the realtor's bank account. Yeah. I tell people, in my transactions when I use realtors, I tell them what to do with it. My biggest saying is, my lawyer will have the deposit when you need it. He can prove sufficient funds are there available.
Yeah.
Some don't allow that. It's, by the way, is a little bit of a red flag on how the transaction is going to go. Oh, no. That deposit has to go to my lawyer or to my realtor. That's usually a red flag.
Yeah, you don't have any control over it. They could just pull it at any time they want.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really lose control over it because your contract will keep you in control, but it's definitely a lot easier to ask for permission. I mean, ask for forgiveness than permission.
Oh, sure. You don't have
Right.
to.
So
You don't have to ask for the money if you already have it in your account, your lawyer's account.
right. And you
Well,
don't have to go fight for it.
you think at least they'd have in some kind of escrow situation or a law fund, a lawyer fund somewhere, but that just in the agent's fee.
Well, lawyers do that. Lawyers have an escrow account, which I'm going to talk about shortly.
But the realtors just keep it in the agency account.
I don't know what they do. I've been told they just deposit it. I've asked and I've never gotten a straight answer.
Wow.
So once the purchase and sales is signed, this document, which by the way, the purchase and sales agreement is the roadmap to the closing.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, so purchase and sales agreement is a document that explains to everybody that's involved, which is all the people I just talked about, which is the banker, the realtor, the banker, the attorney, the insurance guy, and the inspector.
Yeah.
All those are involved in this closing. And the purchase and sales agreement is the description of how the process is going to work, how many days you have, what happens if it's good or if it's bad, if somebody defaults. It's all the rules of the transaction. Okay. And the purchase and sales contract is paving the road to the closing, which, by the way, a closing means ownership has changed.
Right.
Or in our case, in creative real estate, control of ownership has changed.
Right. I almost said deed changes hands because you said that, but really it's control. It's not always
it's
a deed.
Control. Yeah, because in creative real estate, the difference between realtor system and our system is realtor system believes you have to pay all the money to change deeds so ownership can change. They think the only way that you can transact real estate is to pay all the money and get a deed in your name.
Yep.
And I'm going to cover that shortly, why that is there, because I'm going to tell you what's provoking all this to happen.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
So just realize that the closing is either ownership or control of ownership has changed.
Yeah.
Okay. So the purchase and sales contract, it gets you up to that point. Right. So technically, the closing agent or attorney should consult the deal until the closing because they're controlling the paperwork, right? But they don't make as much money as the realtor. So they pawn it off onto the realtor, who is not supposed to do this. Which is the reason why every closing has the last minute phone calls. Oh, I need your financial statements for the last 10 years. And it's 15 minutes before the closing. What? Right? I mean, those are things that happen in the closing. This is the reason why. It's because they're leapfrogging responsibility because all the professionals in the transaction are there for one reason. What are they there for, Peter?
To get their fee.
To get their fee. They are not there to close. You, the seller, is responsible to get it closed. You are supposed to be the orchestrator. What do they call the guy with the stick up in the front?
The stick up is the conductor.
The conductor. That's it. Yeah, the orchestrator, conductor.
But they know the seller knows the least of everybody.
And that's what happens.
That's not even fair. He knows the least of anybody.
So you have to get these conversations from the professionals like, well, this is the way it is supposed to be, or this is what the law says, or this is how it's normally done. And they belittle you to make you feel like you should have known that. So the way it is the seller is fully responsible to make sure the transaction is conducted correctly, which, by the way, a lot of a transaction has to do with timing. Like when you do this and when you do that. Like, for example, there are some things that take longer than other things. Like maybe the inspector needs 2 weeks, or the title search needs 5 days, or the loan needs 30 days.
Yep.
So, so timing is important because you need to get those processes in motion early enough so that you can hit the closing date. And the seller doesn't know that, right? You see how this is?
Well, there's also going to be a sequence too. You don't want to do one
Right,
step if the prior step will blow it up and there's no reason to do it and waste the money,
right,
right?
right,
So you have to know that which comes first, second, third.
right. All right, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go, Peter. Here we go. We're diving in. If you're listening to us right now, put on your snorkels. We're going underwater. We're going deep. Put your air tank on. Get some oxygen. Take a deep breath because here we go.
I thought you were already going. It gets worse.
We are diving
Oh,
deep
geez.
right now.
Go
Here we
ahead.
go.
I'm going to
I
hold my
just
breath.
loaded my gun and I've aimed it.
I got my snorkel tube. I'll hold my breath.
Bullets about to be released.
Disclaimer.
And the reason this whole thing ends up like this is because the godfather in the deal is the banker.
Yeah, figures.
So the one with the gold makes the rules.
Mm-hmm.
So the closing agent or attorney ends up actually working to satisfy the bank. So the money funds the deal and all of the professional fees are paid.
Yep.
Which is the reason why mortgage brokers and realtors and insurance guys work on multiple accounts because they don't know which one is going to pay them that month until it's done. So a good realtor is going to work on 10 transactions in a month to get 3 closed.
Yeah.
If they're good. I'm talking about, one realtor I used did 70 transactions a year.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, we should stop for a moment. I don't have this written down. It just struck me.
Yeah.
You should qualify a realtor if you're going to hire one.
That's right.
Remember we did a podcast on that once. We should do that again.
Sure.
I don't know if I
You had a
have those
list
notes.
of things.
Yeah,
you
I
had a list.
don't know if I could do that again. But the number one thing on the list was how many deals have you closed on in the last 12 months?
Mm-hmm.
Most are 2 or 3, under 5, definitely under 10.
Yeah.
I don't hire a realtor unless the number's above 20.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Actually, it depends on my situation and what I'm trying to do. I don't even look for realtors. I have a guy that was a creative real estate coaching client for 2 years. I trained him and we did several transactions together.
Mm-hmm.
I got paid coaching, but we did deals together. He bought houses and did stuff, and I went out and helped him. And he was, one town over from me, so I helped him. And then he became realtor. He's now a broker, so I use him.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't. But the number one qualification is to ask the realtor, how many transactions have you closed on, got the check for in the last 12 months, and you will be freaking amazed when they tell you, oh, I did 4 deals last year. Not good.
Well, it could be worse than that. I had an old friend, a nice young gal from high school days. I found she's a realtor. So I used to stand at the bus stop with her every day for a few years, right? So I called her and I'm out of town, can't help you. I called her back, I'm in New York, I can't help you. And I called her back, I'm in Texas, I can't help you. What kind of realtor? She wasn't even working. It was that bad. It's like a title. I got a business card. Look at me. I go to lunch.
Yeah, no disrespect. I'm probably gonna get support tickets on this, but it's usually like a wife, and the husband wants her to get a job. It used to be that way. I don't think it is anymore. And it was a good type of job where she could still take care of the kids in the house. It's definitely, I'm being male chauvinist right now, but I think that's how it started. Definitely in the 60s and the 70s for sure. When I was a kid, that's how it was, right?
Sure. Well, anybody just looking for a sideline, that's one thing. But we want a professional who's really doing this for a living, that he needs the bucks and wants to do a good job.
And they have a stigma to them. They want to drive a Mercedes and they want to have a business card and professional suits and they look good, and none of that matters. What really matters in real estate skills is the ability to negotiate, understand contracts, understand the process, and have a network.
Yeah.
Those are the things that matter. So anyways, we're off topic here. So The one thing that, so I'll start over again. The one with the gold makes the rules. So the closing agent or attorney ends up actually working to satisfy the banks. So the money funds the deal and all of the fees get paid. Which, by the way, is why there are attorney states and non-attorney states. Like Connecticut's an attorney state, right?
Yeah.
But when we're on our coaching call, there are non-attorney states, right?
Yeah. So why?
So it really comes down to the laws of each state and how they handle escrows.
Uh-huh.
So that's why there's escrow states and non-escrow states. See, so and an escrow in this sense means the funds or assets are temporarily transferred and held by a third party on behalf of the buyer or the seller.
Mm-hmm.
So the bank will fund the escrow account so they can disperse payments in the transaction.
Yep.
So escrow is a third party meaning they're not part of the transaction. They're an outside entity that has the ability to receive and pay for the seller or the buyer the money. Is that clear enough?
I think so, yeah.
Thus, so each state has an escrow closing agent or an attorney, because each state has different laws based on how you temporarily hold those funds. So some states, like, and being 100% political, and you could bash me all you want, because especially nowadays, I live in one of the most blue, you and I live in one of the most bluest states on the map in Connecticut. And if you think for 1 second you want to go up against me in a one-on-one conversation at the cigar shop, I will only do it with, right? If you want to go up against me, and the guys have, go up against me in a one-on-one conversation about living in a blue state, I will not only knock you dead, but I'll bury you and forget you even lived. Because I can rattle off the amount of things that I have to pay for and the expense it costs me to do transactions. It's pitiful. And I only know this because I coach around the country in other states like Texas, right? I actually had a coaching client because I preached that it's 12 to 15% on closing costs. Well, in Texas, it's not that much. It's more like 8%. And it has to do with their closing, how they handle things. In Texas, there is no such thing as lease options. You can do a lease option. They're not illegal. Everybody says they're illegal. Lease options are illegal in Texas. They're not illegal. They just don't like them to go past 180 days, which is 6 months. When you read their documents and you hear how they run their state, it's actually easier for you to do a owner finance deal with your transaction, because in like 21 days you're foreclosed upon and out. In Connecticut, it's 6 months, and then you have a right of redemption after the 6 months for another 6 months. So it could be up to a year it could take you to get somebody out of a house. Texas is 21 days. I tell my Texas guys, I wish I could do that. I almost want to go to Texas just for that. So don't come crying my Cheerios because you can't do a lease option, you can't do a slot deal. Of course you can do a slot deal as a sandwich lease option transfer, right? Wholesaling lease options. You absolutely could do that. You just use land contracts. Everything else works the same. You just use a different document. Right? All right, back to the real estate mafia. The Godfather now runs the transaction with, do as I say, or I am no ally of yours, and you won't get my money. So now the other Guidos, what's a Guido, Peter?
I have no idea, Bill. Really, I don't know.
What's a Guido, Peter?
Bill, if I put my black hat on, my white tie, and my sunglasses, I would be Guido. How's that?
So tell us what it is.
A nice Italian boy that has a bunch of friends that do business. Nice business. They're in business.
You're not gonna say, huh?
Well, they're just businessmen. They're like, they go to church. They love their mother. Take care of the kids.
So Guido is a man, especially an Italian American, regarded as vain, aggressively masculine, and socially unsophisticated.
Boy, that was almost me to the very end. Oh my God.
In other words, he's in the good old boy network.
Yeah, I'm Guido, but with class.
Okay. So now the other Guidos all jumped in.
Thanks,
The attorney makes sure the banker is protected, if not paid, aka the paperwork bat for collections. Right? You know the old bat, break your knees.
Yeah, brass knuckles.
The insurance guy makes sure the Godfather is protected in case of things like fire or any damage or lawsuits, anything like that. They're making sure that the Godfather gets paid first, because the pecking order is the tax man and then the Godfather, the bank, right? That's the pecking order. They get paid first. And oh yeah, by the way, banks get paid by when they file. So first bank is first position, second bank is second position, third bank is third position, right?
Like if you're getting multiple loans?
Yeah. So you could have a $200,000 house and the first bank could lend $50,000 and the second bank could lend $150,000. That means the $50,000 gets paid first. So first position is when you file. Who's first, who's second, who's third? Who made these rules up?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So the insurance guy makes sure that the Godfather is protected if the house burns down or gets damaged or there's a lawsuit, right? The inspector is there to make sure the house is not gutted and the appraisal is correct. So the Godfather does not overlend and lose money.
You've never explained it like this the last time we did this. I mean, it's quite a picture you're drawing. The bank really is the only one that has the money. So when any gets paid, it's only because it's coming out of the bank. But everybody is protecting the bank so they can get the money.
Yeah.
Everything is covered. Everything's protected. Do the title search. Make sure it's okay. Make sure there's no asbestos. Make sure the paint isn't chipping because, make sure the house is worth it.
Or lead paint.
Yeah, lead. Yeah. But the way you're describing it, the bank really calls the shots, but everybody's protecting it. So they get their piece of the action. Boy, they really are in cahoots.
Tied in so neatly.
And
designed to make us believe that we need them and have to pay their gaffing fees.
Well, you'd almost think like it's illegal not to, but there's no such thing. You can buy and sell what you want. But people think, oh, no. Got to go through that. Wow.
Here's the funny myth. I'm going to cover this shortly, right? Here's a funny thing. The banks are very conservative people.
Yeah.
So definition of conservatism is I have this and don't want to lose it.
Isn't there a bit of I'm afraid I might lose it if I'm not careful?
Right. And that's where all that stuff comes from. But it's like I have $100,000 and I'm afraid to lose it.
Yeah.
I have power, I'm afraid to lose it.
I
have a house, I'm afraid to lose it. I have, and this is a tough one, I have one child, I'm afraid to lose him.
What do you mean?
People that have one child are very conservative.
Oh, yeah. You're not talking about a bank in that case. Yeah.
Right. I know because my wife, who's my second wife, has one child, and I've gone through 23 years of it. I'm afraid to lose it.
Yeah.
You have, I mean, not that you want to lose any child, but anyways, it's a point on how they think, right? So conservatism, which is not a horrible thing, right, begs protection with banks. The very interesting thing is this. They think they control all the money. They think that they're the hub of money. They think no matter what, you have to come to them for the money.
Like they're the only ones who have money.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I've run into in my life is people with money that have made it, so they think. Like I have a relative like this. They think that they've made money, which, by the way, if they're lucky, they have $1 million worth of assets. If they're lucky. To me, that's not making it. Okay, that's a good start, but that's not making it. And little does this woman know that I've done better than her. Let's just put it that way, right? So when she's talking to me, she's preaching to me. I tell my wife that there's a name for that, and I didn't make this up. It's called the God effect.
Oh, really? I hadn't heard that. The God effect.
The God effect. They feel like they're successful, and you should listen to them because they know. And they preach to you about what you should or shouldn't do. It's called the God effect. Right? It comes from the banking industry, the God effect, because they feel like they have the money, they make the rules, and there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked about this in the past, and I don't want to divert on this, but The Creature from Jekyll Island, which is a book. You can go on YouTube, and there's a 40-minute video that you can get all of it. Or you can get the book, which is 500 pages and explains it all. It goes through the entire monetary system, all the way back to,
19.
I think it's 1800 and something, where it starts. Like out west, and they had, the blacksmith had a safe, and that's how the banking industry. But it was 19. Actually, I just did. I'm going to talk about this because the next podcast is called, this podcast number 367 is called, Is Creative Real Estate Really Legal Today? Right? And I go over some of this stuff with the banks, but it was 1913.
Yeah.
When they came out with that. And the next podcast, you're going to be amazed at how things are connected, because most people don't connect them. No. And how realtors and real estate and money and all of that affected the Depression. Right? So we're going to cover all that. But the point that I'm trying to make right now is that if you watch the YouTube video and read the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, you're going to realize that our monetary system is the biggest scam on planet Earth. Right? And so the banker system is 100% fraud, which is the reason why I talk about it the way I do, because it's not the way it seems. And if you break the social veneer of the banker just a little bit, you find out it's nothing but deception. I mean, you talk about your son working at a bank and being a teller and being pushed to the point where he quit his job on selling mortgages. Because
loans, mortgages, they want I thought I was going to be a teller. My wife was there too for a while. Yeah.
So what their objective is, what their goal is, and I know this because I've read it and I've heard this from people that are on boards of directors of banks. Ray was for a while, my partner Ray.
Oh, yeah?
Their objective is to consume all of the equity in real estate. If the banker had their way, there would be no Frankler houses. The banker would be getting paid on all the equity on real estate because it's one of their biggest profit centers.
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't you if you do what they do? I mean, they lend you $100,000, and if you pay for 30 years, you pay like $266,000.
Yeah.
You pay 1.5 times what you borrow. Why wouldn't you want that if you're collecting that money? I mean, I traveled for 40 weeks a year when I was consulting automotive repair shops 40 weeks a year. I left on a Friday, came back on a Monday, right? We did a weekend seminar, and we would, obviously we were in all the major cities and some in Canada. So I've been all over the United States. And I noticed when I read the book, Creature from Jekyll Island, which I should probably read it again. It's been 10 years since I read it or more. When you go in the city and you walk through the city, the tallest buildings that are notable are bank owned. Chase Manhattan, I don't know, I can't rattle them off. American National,
Bank of America,
Bank of America, Wells Fargo, TD Bank, the biggest buildings, they're high-rise buildings, tall skyscrapers, have bank names on the top of it.
Yep.
So why is that? Is that because they charge you $25 for a bounce fee?
Well, multiply that by about 4 million.
Yeah. Right? I mean, there's a reason, and the reason is because of the mortgages.
Yeah.
Right? Because the amount of money. And if you read The Creature from Jekyll Island, you'll realize that they call it page 38. What happens is when the government prints money, which, by the way, the government is not allowed to use paper money. The Constitution says you cannot use paper money. It's only metal money, gold or silver.
Which would be real.
Yeah. So what happens is that these bankers, created an institution called the Federal Reserve, which is not government owned. It's privately held, but they wanted you to think that it's government owned. And the Federal Reserve prints money. So the government calls them up and says, print $1 billion. So when you look at your money, it says it's a note meaning it's borrowed money.
Yeah.
Right. So how do they get that $1 billion worth of printed notes into society? Well, the way they do it is they deposit the money into the government's checkbook, and the government spends it. So that when they were devising this system, they were like, okay, well, the population's not going to let us do that. So how can we fix that? I know. Let's tell them we're going to charge income tax, or no, we're going to charge taxes, not income tax, but income tax. Right?
Yeah, it started right around the same time, just before World War I. They started income tax as well. We didn't have income tax before that. None.
Right, before 1913. So what happens is they're going to charge income tax, and we're going to tell the people that's what pays for the government. So people think that their tax money is what pays for the government, which is not true, because what pays for the government is the printed money that's unlimited. So they can't spend enough of it. So what they do is they put it in accounts like Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae and now college funds. And that's how they fund. So the government is in the money business and what they call fiat money. And fiat means by law. So the American dollar, if you try to use other money, I mean, once in a while you can pass some Canadian coins and dollars here and there, but you cannot use other money in the United States. You'll get arrested for it. It's a law that says you have to use this money. Right? So what happens is, page 38, I'm way off topic here, but page 38 is, so if the bank lends, which is what they call FHA, right? Freddie Mac, Fannie Mac, these are all mortgage companies, right? CHFA, these are all mortgage-backed loans by the government. So the bank facilitates an FHA mortgage, say for $100,000. They put page 38 on the end of the loan before submitting it, and allows them to get 10 times the value back in money. So if you submit a $100,000 mortgage, they get $1 million for it. And then they actually had the balls, the audacity to come back and foreclose on you, saying that you owe them the money when the government gave them $1 million.
Yeah, they're way ahead. Well, I like the part where, what do they do with the $900,000? Lend it to us and collect more interest.
Right.
So they got it for free, and they're making money from us. So we're the one paying, and they're the one taking.
So I am not cynical or critical or bashing realtors and the banks because I don't like them. It's because I've done my research over the course of many years, decades, not done my research, just kind of read things. Go to YouTube and type in The Creature from Jekyll Island. The author of the book, it's about a 40-minute video, will do a much better job of explaining it better than I did, because he did the research. He has names. He has the bankers' names. He has the politicians' names. He has the lobbyists' names. He has all. It's all public record, and he found
it's not even a secret. They don't even try to cover it up. They don't care.
No.
And by the way, Jekyll Island isn't to make the book sound creepy and scary. It's actually the name of an island off the coast of Georgia. That's just where things happen. It's not even
because it was secret. When they brought these people together, they had to travel by train. They had to have costumes. They were not allowed to bring their servants.
Fake names.
And when they got there, they had servants that had no idea who these people were. They didn't know that they were, like the Childresses and the Chases and the big bank names, Morgans. And the reason why they did it is because banks were collapsing late 1800s, early 1900s, because they were breaking lending laws. And they were collapsing and making the banks look bad, like they're unsecure. So they decided they needed to fix it, and they created the monopoly.
You know what the part I like best about all this? When it was all going down, it took a few years, right? It didn't happen overnight. But as the laws were going to get passed, the banks actually came out, correct me if I'm wrong, and they were actually against the laws to do this, to make people think they didn't like it, so that they got it passed. Well, the banks don't want it, so let's do it. And the banks that set it up in the first place. Can you say scam about a scam about a scam? I like that part the best.
The last thing I want to say about this, Peter, and we're way off topic. We just spent, oh my goodness, 20 minutes, with 15 minutes. We got to keep going here. So the last thing I want to say about this is this. Nixon, I think in 1979, October 1979, I might be wrong on the date, took our money off of gold standard.
He totally did. I was alive and I saw it happen. Yep.
Gold standard means that they could print as much money as we had gold.
So it had collateral. It stood for
collateral. And the fathers of our country wrote it that way so that they couldn't overprint money. So what has happened now, which is why we live the way we are, is once they took the gold standard away, they no longer had limits on how much money they could print.
Sure.
Which is why you hear such crazy numbers about deficits and all these other things. I heard yesterday, Peter, that our country is worse off than we think. We used to have a AAA credit score.
That's right.
And yesterday it was knocked down to AA.
Yep.
So it's not the fact that it's AAA or AA. The fact that it went down a notch means other countries will look at us as not the secure country that we are, and they will stop lending us money.
Well, if they do, they'll charge us more. It'll cost more.
They'll charge us more.
Yeah. And it's not based on political things. It's the actual economic numbers.
Right.
Yep.
All right. So all of these are like bad and yucky. So I can't just do a podcast and leave you like feeling like crap.
Bring you down just to bring you back up.
So let's cover some Mythbusters that might help you a whole bunch.
Yep.
Okay. So number one, this is about real estate in general.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need a closing agent or attorney to pass a deed or the ownership of any real estate.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't need an attorney. I could sign a deed to my house and give it to Peter, no problem. All I need to do is I need to go to the city hall and file it, which is about $70.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Two.
Mm-hmm.
If you do not need to pay off a loan when selling real estate.
Mm.
There are very, very legal ways to pass the loan with the deed when changing ownership.
Mm-hmm.
We call that subject to. It's not like car loans. Car loans, you have to pay them off before you can pass the deed.
Yeah, because you don't have the title until it's paid. They just do that.
And the reason why is because cars can travel. Cars can be put in shipping containers and go to other countries.
Mm-hmm.
They can disappear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Houses don't, right? Number 3, you don't need to pass a deed to control a piece of real estate.
Mm-hmm.
The Godfather spreads these lies because he wants to own all of the equity in every city so he can get his monthly fees, which he calls interest.
Yep.
So they spread these lies that you can't do this. This is against the law. You can't do that. But I beg you to look at, how did we do all this before the realtor came on board?
Uh-huh.
I mean, the word realtor started in 1913. If you read their materials, they say that they formed a realtor association in 1913.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go, which I did, you go into the what is the word I want? The trade associations.
Mm-hmm.
Trademark.
Right. The official.
The government runs the trademark.
Happens.
When they got their trademark, it was 1949.
Right.
So they want you to believe they've been around since 1913.
Well, not officially though.
Actually, when I cover this, I'm going to cover this in the next podcast. The banker was the one that made up the word realtor.
Oh, really? That's where it came from.
Yeah. All right, number 4. Sellers do not have to pay all of the closing costs, which tend to run 12 to 15% when paying all of the professionals in the current realtor system. See, the only way that the guys that have the professional licenses can get paid is to lock it to the seller in a contract.
Mm.
So when they sign a listing contract, they're obligating the seller to pay all the closing costs.
Well, they're figuring the bank's going to hand him the big fat check, and they're going to cut all the fees off of that, and he gets the one that's whatever's left.
So the closing costs do not have to be paid by the seller. See, in creative real estate, we get our buyer to pay the closing costs, and we save our seller that money. That's a big difference when we're having a conversation with them. But there is no law, and there is no rule or no
well, there's no obligation for
obligation to for the seller to pay. But the Godfather made up these rules, right? Number 5, you don't need to have landlord responsibilities when allowing a renter to pay monthly expenses while using the property. If you know how to do transactions correctly and not have the covert intention to protect the Godfather, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you could do it the way we do it.
Yep.
It's a big difference between the way they do things and the way we do things, which, by the way, going back to what I was telling you, so 1949 was the breaking point when the realtors, they called it, what is it? NAR, N-A-R. It's called NAR in the early days. 1913 was called NAR.
Association of Realtors.
Right. It was called NAR. And it changed in 1949 when they trademarked everything. That's when their real association actually became nationwide. Mm-hmm. So what happened before then? How did we buy real estate and sell real estate even before 1913? Because real estate's been around for a lot longer than 1913.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So some of the lesser known facts you should know about in today's real estate is the word realtor was coined. Oh, it's in here. Okay. I thought it was the next episode. It's this one. The word realtor was coined by Charles N. Chadbourne in 1960 in an article.
1960?
1916.
16, okay. He came up with realtor.
Yeah. Charles N. Chadbourne wrote an article about it in 1916. The word was modeled from a Latin suffix, meaning at the end, tor, which means actor or creator.
Okay.
But this group of professionals were not organized and, quite frankly, not thought of well until 1949. Right? They didn't have a code of ethics or anything like that. So in September of 1949, the Realtor Code of Ethics was written. And in October of 1949, the National Association of Realtors was trademarked and formed to police this code of ethics. Because from 1913 to 1949, they were not good guys. Right? I had to sneeze, sorry.
Nice muting.
I muted myself, yeah. So what happened was, and just common sense. I mean, I didn't read this. This is my own not observation, but my own take on it. Is It's very easy to take $1,500 or $1,000 deposit and say, yeah, this deal's going to go through, and the realtor figures, well, I can pay my bills with that $1,000 because this deal's definitely going to go through, and then the deal doesn't go through, and then the realtor doesn't have the money. The 1950s guy.
Yeah, that's what happened, huh?
Well, I'm assuming that's what happened because it happens now, and there's laws. And and when I went through the realtor school, this is what they told me.
Yeah.
They told me that this is the reason why these laws are here is because the money would get spent, right?
Yep.
Which says a lot in itself to me, right? If you want to see how healthy or unhealthy a society is, just look at its laws. The more laws, the less unhealthy. The less laws, the better they are. I mean, I don't have a chance to distract here, but there are actually cities in other countries that have no police and they get along very well. They just run on their own horsepower and they keep one another's ethics in. The only point in talking about this chain of events that the realtor system has buried deep so you can't find it is to ask the only question to yourself that is vital, which is, how do we transact real estate before realtors and bankers? And you will plant yourself into an interesting concept that most creative real estate I'm going to say that again, okay? And you'll plant yourself into an interesting concept that most call creative real estate today, or the alternative real estate. So that's a lie because they're actually the alternative, right? So
we were here first.
Yeah,
people just conducting business between themselves,
right? So, I tell my wife this when we're talking about politics. If certain people stood up on a stump and said, people accuse those of what they themselves are doing, it would say a lot. So when somebody's doing something wrong, they accuse the other person of doing something wrong so that they're right and the other person's wrong, and they make the other person a lesser of a target. Right? So the realtor, unbeknownst to themselves, and I'm not talking about a realtor, I'm talking about the realtor system, has buried all this information because they don't want you to know, right? So lastly for today, the unraveling truths you should carry forward from today are: in the Realtor Code of Ethics is very harsh language about not revealing the client's motivation.
Right.
And how this is unethical. Here's why. The association has invented a specific definition for this term. They believe motivated sellers are people who want or need to sell and may be willing to sell their property at a discount to a buyer who can close fast with minimal contract restrictions. Which I understand. But why, when using this term, they don't talk about motivated buyers? Do you understand?
Yeah, like people sometimes, I got to get a house. Mine's sold, or I'm out, and we saw a guy with a trailer full of his stuff sitting in somebody's yard going, I need to find a house, because he just sold one. He hadn't purchased one. He was sitting in a chair. Where's a house I can buy?
So you understand? Let me just clarify that before I move on here. Okay. So the realtor system says that they can't reveal their client's motivation.
They don't want people taking advantage of it.
Because they don't want people taking advantage of it, because their definition of motivation, and you can go online and check all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Are people that need to sell and may be willing to sell their house at a discount. Now, how does a realtor get paid?
Well, on the amount the house sells, and everybody else too. So the less it gets sold, he loses if it sells for less.
So a discount is not in his favor, right?
No.
So all I'm saying to you is the definition pertains to the seller, but it doesn't pertain to the buyer. Mm-hmm. So if the buyer's desperate to buy a house, then how come the definition doesn't?
They could overpay.
Right.
It would even out. And
look at post COVID-19. They were doing that left, right, and center, right? People were overpaying massive amount of money, right?
Mm-hmm.
See, if you use this definition, which is the real definition, actually, if you use this definition, you'll vilify or break the code,
mm-hmm.
which is the real definition. However, if I do like what if let me see. However, if you do like what we do and use the correct definition of motivate, you will not have skullduggery, which is dishonesty.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, you'll find this. Our definition, which is from the dictionary, is of motivation is the reason or reasons one has for acting or behaving in a particular way. So the definition of motivation in multiple dictionaries, because I use more than one, is the reason or reasons one has for acting or behaving in a particular way. It has nothing to do with discounts or giving, none of that.
Yeah, it doesn't mean it's bad. You can have a good reason. It doesn't mean it's a bad reason.
Right. And my favorite definition is the general desire or willingness of someone to do something.
Mm-hmm.
So, Peter, in our coaching calls, how much do you hear me talking about the math is one thing, the seller's willingness is another thing?
Of course.
This is where I get it from. It's the definition of motivation, the general desire or willingness. What does willingness mean?
Well, you are apt to do something and you want to do something. Try not to say willing here. It's things that you would do.
Right. So ness, the suffix ness, N-E-S-S, the willingness.
Mm-hmm.
The definition of ness, the suffix, is state or condition or quality.
Yeah, it makes a thing or noun out of a description, like willing describes something. I am willing describes. It's a willingness just means it's a thing now. I have willingness. Different way to
so it tells you the quality of their being willing.
Yeah.
So it's the quality of them being willing. So when you're talking to a seller, which we've had many podcasts about this, the math is one topic.
Mm-hmm.
Their willingness or their ability to do what you want them to do is a whole nother thing.
Sure.
So that's why my favorite is the general desire or willingness of someone to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you want to be a good creative real estate person, you would write that down and you would memorize it, because it's the general desire or willingness of someone to do something. That is your entire job. That is your objective. That is what you should get good at. That is what you should master. You should have a PhD in that sentence. The general desire or willingness of someone to do something. Because if you know how to do that, you will be a multimillionaire in creative real estate. Because if you learn how to extract that from any person, which is not hard, and if you use that sentence in my scripts and past podcasts, you'll realize that that is a major foundation stepping stone for creative real estate, is knowing the general desire or willingness of someone to do something.
Hmm.
That is step one of the Yellow Brick Road before you get anywhere close to the owls. Okay? So bottom line, the realtor system is devoted and paid off the contracted sales number.
Mm-hmm.
So discounting prices and or money paid later is shunned heavily.
Mm-hmm.
And this makes for only one product a realtor can give, and that is all the money at the closing. And after done hundreds of deals, after I have done hundreds of deals, I know that all money does not fix a lot of problems that sellers have.
Mm-hmm.
Once you start talking to sellers, you'll notice that too. That money is only about 20% of the real reason people want to do deals.
20.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Think about it.
Yeah, I didn't think it'd be that low.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, we've talked to people. I've seen them. Like, please, I got to get out of this house. I don't live here. It's my parents. It's got too much work to do. I'm out of state. I fly to Arizona. My girlfriend started having to do some of the renovation to get this off our back, and she's getting mad at me. Would you please, for the love of God, take this house?
Mm-hmm.
So if he gives us $10,000 extra of equity, $20,000 of equity, that's solving a problem for him. That's worth it to him.
He's not thinking about the equity. He's thinking about the relief.
Yeah. And it's worth it to give us that money to do the work for him.
Yeah.
And move on, so he can move on.
Hey, they're going to give it to the realtor anyways. They're going to give the realtor 15% anyways. Most people don't realize when they put their house on the MLS that they're giving away 15% of their profit. They don't even know that. Some of them don't even have 15% worth of profit to give away. So they could pay all the professionals. Thus, exposing the real estate mafia. Top secret, too. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. I certainly did. Make sure you go in the description for the link I put in there for you. It's actually a free masterclass that talks about some of this stuff. It talks about creative real estate, and it's very interesting for you to watch. Even if you do understand creative real estate, you should go refresh yourself with these videos because they are very concise and very to the point, and you'll love them. Don't forget to like us. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel wherever you're watching us or listening to us, and prepare yourself. I'm giving you a 7-day notice. Prepare yourself for episode number 367. Is creative real estate really legal today? Ta-da.
Okay.
Have a good week, guys. Flourish and prosper. Let us know if you're making deals. Send us some communication. Go to flippinghousesforrookies.com and send us a support ticket, or there's a bunch of good stuff on that site, so you should go check it out. Okay? Over and out. Talk to you on episode number 367.